welcome to John's World. I'm the host, John Billings, and I do have Bill Woods right here. He's the webmaster and also the creator of One Happy Diabetic. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you so much
Good.
for having me on.
Good. I am a diabetic type 2, and I was diagnosed in 1996, actually in October of 1996. And when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in December of 1988.
Okay. And he's a type 1. And if anybody knows the difference between type 1 and type 2, we might talk about that later. But you were growing up as a type 1. I did not know until I was 26 that I was a diabetic. How was it going through school and being the only person in school that had diabetes and everything? And how hard was it?
You know, growing up as a juvenile diabetic or a type 1 diabetic, especially at a young age, when, you know, all you want to do is fit in. You want to be just like everybody else. But unfortunately, you know, that wasn't the case with me. And I kind of knew I was different. You know, obviously, when I got diagnosed and had to, you know, stay in the hospital for a few days. But coming out of that diagnosis, you know, my teachers all had to become aware that I had diabetes and what my complications if I had a low blood sugar were. And, you know, frequent trips to the nurse's office usually isn't the coolest thing, you know, when you're all worried about what you're wearing while you're in school. So kind of right at an early age, you know, it was a little bit difficult and nobody really talked about it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that someone has growing up with either type 1 or type 2. It's finding the right people to talk to so that you don't feel all alone.
Yeah, it is. Now, you were in sports. I was reading on your onehappydiabetic.com that you're in sports and everything. How difficult was it, especially being probably the only kid on your football team or whatever team you had, that you had to stop and test your sugar all the time and everything? How did you do it? Give some tips.
Yeah, you know, playing sports was a real challenge. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I played Division II football in college. But to kind of start off, when I was in Little League and I was 9 years old, I actually had my first diabetic seizure right on third base in Little League. And the reason for that was not that I didn't check my blood sugar, or not that I didn't have enough carbohydrates for the game, which might have led to it a little bit, but it was because I wasn't aware of the symptoms of what a low blood sugar was. I was still, you know, very newly diagnosed. And kind of from that day on, my doctors were really cautious with me playing sports. So one of the things that I always had to do was make sure that my blood sugar was in line. I always had to make sure that I had juice boxes with me and peanut butter crackers. And actually, when I played football in high school, when I was a junior and a senior, I played quarterback. We actually had some freshman kids and some peewee football kids, and their job was to hold my bag of juice boxes, literally. And what would happen was because we couldn't call a timeout every time my blood sugar was low and I felt low, they would literally rocket launch these juice boxes to me on the field, and I swear I'd suck them down in about 15 seconds because I needed to be constantly, you know, fueled with carbohydrates, or my blood sugar would get low. And there's nothing worse, you know, as someone who has diabetes, where it starts affecting your performance, whether it's performance in school or performance on the field. It's definitely something that you really need to take control of, because there's nothing worse than putting all that time and effort to how to throw a touchdown pass, how to kick a ball, how to, you know, hit a baseball with a bat, when you step up to the plate and then your complications because your diabetes takes effect. So really, it's trying to be over-prepared for any situation that comes.
Okay. Now, it's very important to have family and your wife, your husband, whatever, involved in your diabetes. How important is that?
You know, the diabetes support that I have is just amazing. My wife has been with me for over 15 years, and really, she's a vital part of my team. She can recognize symptoms of my blood sugars, whether they're high or low, before I even do. A lot of times my mood will change if my blood sugar's high or if it's low. I'm kind of like, I don't know if there's any cat people out here watching, but I'm kind of like a cat where, you know, you're petting it, and all of a sudden it just attacks you for no reason. You're like, I thought you were a good cat, you know? That's a little bit how diabetes is that, you know, once you think you're under control, and then all of a sudden my wife will say to me, test your blood sugar, right? And I'm like, you know, I don't want to test my blood sugar. And a lot of people actually take offense to it when someone tells them to check their blood sugar. I know when I was younger, my mom would say, check your blood sugar. I'm like, oh, great, you know, never wanted to do it. I still don't want to do it. And when your loved one is telling you to do it, a lot of people get on the defensive, but in all honesty, they're doing that because they care about you.
Yeah.
And so when my wife tells me to check my blood sugar, usually she's a better, has a better value of what my blood sugar is than my actual meter when I go and check.
Yeah.
And so it's actually nice, if I do, and sometimes, I get a little moody and my wife will say, check my blood sugar. Sometimes I blame it on my blood sugar, why not?
It was really interesting you said something like that because me and my wife has a friend, and her husband is a diabetic. And she just pointed out to me, and she's like, he went through his mood swings again, so his sugar was out. And I said, see, man, is this not me? I am not the only one that goes through mood swings. Being a diabetic is really hard, and it's also hard as depression too. Depression will set in really quick.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, think about it. My story, growing up being the only person in my school that ever had diabetes. Luckily, actually, when I went to college, my roommate also had type 1 diabetes,
cool.
and we kind of met during orientation, and it was a good learning experience to see kind of what his symptoms were compared to mine, and they were completely different. But growing up and being alone and not having anyone to talk to, and I know we're just talking about the mood swings, but it's hard to say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
When it's your diabetes talking, quote unquote. And I think that's a really big step for people to take, to really accept the fact of, this is who I am. Unfortunately, I can't be normal. And you got to take the good with the bad, but it's to recognize those. And, my wife will always say is, apologize afterwards. I mean, right? So, not everything is rocket science here. But, if I do have a mood swing or something comes up, it's taking acceptance of the fact that's me.
A lot of stuff.
I know, sorry.
I'm like going back there because you're talking just like things that I run into all the time.
Yeah.
You have to have a good family support. You have to have a wife and the kids or your brothers and sisters. And I do live in a house where nobody else is diabetic, so it's even harder because the sugar comes in the house and stuff like that. And it's harder to be able to say, okay, well, I only can have so much carbs, and start pulling out the boxes and reading carbs and fiber and stuff like that. But it's very, very interesting that it is that things can even happen. But with your depression, I want to step in. Your website is based on good attitude.
Absolutely.
Very good attitude.
Absolutely.
And I actually picked them off in Facebook. And I went to his site about a year and a half ago, and I started watching most all his videos. And this guy, the energy you see next to me is the energy you're going to see on that website. And he has wonderful information. And he is not a doctor, but he's been through a lot of years of experience, and he shares a lot about experiences, how it feels being diabetic and everything. But why is it so important to stay positive in having diabetes? Why not think about, well, my eyes are going to go blind pretty soon, I'm going to lose a leg? Why is it so important to keep positive?
Well, we just talked about how you can be alone with diabetes, or you can be depressed with diabetes. My site, One Happy Diabetic, the tagline is, it's all about your attitude. And it's so true. Just think about all the things that you do on a daily basis where your attitude on what you're doing is probably the majority of the outcome of what ends up happening. Am I right? And John says, how you see me here, I always have a constant smile on my face, and I'm very motivational in a lot of the diabetes videos that I do, a little humor mixed in there. But the great thing about my videos that I really think is such a great thing is that the whole family can watch these videos, right? I could never imagine in a million years when I was younger that I'd be sitting down in front of the internet with my family watching somebody who has diabetes talk about some tips and tricks or counting carbs and how to do it properly, and then actually smile about it, feel good about it, and learn something all at the same time. That's really what One Happy Diabetic is, and that's what I try to do with the videos.
Now, One Happy Diabetic, too, is a website where you can become a member. You can post blogs, you can post videos, and you can also do forums. So you can start a discussion, and there's been a lot of good discussions about questions about pumps and the ongoing technology with the pumps for diabetic 1 and everything. And it's a very good website. And you are also a member of Diabetic Diabetic Connect.
Yes.
Why is it so important for a diabetic to be on like the Life community and your One Happy Diabetic and other communities that are out there for diabetes? Why is it so important to be a member of it and actually be talking to other diabetics?
Right, definitely. Those are some great websites. Another really amazing website is To Diabetes. That's tudiabetes.org. That's another community-based website that just involves interaction. So, I mean, we were always talking about how you feel alone. Well, the internet has this opportunity where you can just reach out and touch someone literally and get feedback. One of the great things about our site is that we have this section in our forums that is titled, I Had an Ugly Day. Because it happens to everyone, but nobody wants to have,
Yep.
nobody has
Nope.
a forum post
Nope.
that says, I have an ugly day, right? Well, we all have them.
Yep.
So it's such a great outlet to say, hey, this is me. You know, you can be anonymous, whatever the case, it doesn't matter. We're not going to look you up, you know, but, you know, you write your day that you had, and you will be astonished how good you feel once you've gotten it out, but the responses that you get from people that have gone through the same thing. Everybody literally has gone through a bad day with their diabetes, with their struggle, with their life, everything trying to mix in all together. To be able to get feedback from people that say, I know how you feel, that reassurance is just amazing. The other thing, too, is, you know, before the, you know, internet really came to, you know, support groups were really the only way that you could get out and meet a selected group of individuals. And recently on the Oprah show, they had somebody on there that said, if you go to a support group meeting once a month, it's the equivalent of having an extra income of $100,000 a year. That's how much it improves your happiness, basically. So not that we're giving out 100K on any website here, but really you will be so surprised about how many people are there just like you, and you can get questions answered. Listen, we're not medical professionals, but you'll get some good advice on where you can go to get the information that you need.
That's good. That's really good. And you do give out good advice and everything. And, I've been very pleased with what you've been saying on your website. Now, you are a president or something with Juvenile Diabetes
Sure, I'll
Foundation.
talk a little bit about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
The JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, I am the president of the Young Leadership Committee here in North Central Connecticut and Western Massachusetts. Our group is basically young adults with type 1 diabetes. I got diagnosed when I was 8, but it looks like I grew up a little bit, right? So where do I fit in now? And actually now when, you know, I have a job and I can give back a little bit, there's this opportunity of people with diabetes that, you know, is in between the range of 21 to 40. And what we're trying to do is basically have this support kind of group mentality, but, you know, do it over some maybe adult beverages, some food, things like that, where it's not sit down, hi, my name's Bill, I have diabetes for 25 years, here's my awful story. But it's more getting to know people. I will tell you this, from going to diabetes meetups and meeting other people with diabetes, there's this immediate connection that you will have with people that share the same thing as you. There's just this trust factor immediately between two people, and then your loved ones have the same thing going on. Whether they have type 1 or type 2 or not, they go through their own challenges having to deal with us. And I'm telling you, it's just a big sigh of relief when you can get people to meet up and do that. And with the JDRF that I was speaking about, the Young Leadership Committee, you know, we're trying to raise money in hopes to find a cure for this disease. And, you know, I'm sick of counting how many years I've had diabetes. I'm sick of counting, you know, the 50,000 insulin injections I've done. I'm done counting. I want to stop counting this and start, you know, living a life where I don't have this. I just can't imagine what that would be, but it would be a great day.
Yeah, and it just, the improvements on diabetes over the years and technology of diabetes over the years. When I got diagnosed in 1996, I thought, after I started learning the symptoms, I'm like, well, I thought it was normal for me to go to the bathroom every 2-3 times a night.
Right.
I thought it was normal to sit down and have a gallon of water at one sitting. But then I started saying, well, I always done that, so maybe when I was a kid I might have had diabetes, and I might have had diabetes when I had a kid, but diabetes back in the 70s when I grew up, it was not a thing that was prolonged that's out there like it is now. And but the technology has advanced so much just on the meter itself. Okay, we're talking back in the 50s and the 60s. You were just you had the Keno strips that you had you had urine on, and that's how you got your number. It was okay. Maybe it was in between this range and that range, and you had to look at the color. But now you're just in 5 seconds, in some of the meters you can get your numbers and everything. And now the insulin pump, you don't have to keep on injecting yourself.
Right.
You got an insulin pump. I don't see you with both pumps. I've seen people with two.
Right.
The
Yeah,
meter and the pump together.
I'm not wearing my CGMS continuous glucose monitoring system as we speak, but I do have my insulin pump in my pocket, and I bet none of the viewers watching this right now could actually see that I have this insulin pump in my pocket. But I'm actually right this second getting very, very minute, I want to say drops, but infusions of insulin into my body as we speak, where before I used an insulin pump, it was multiple daily injections, so up to 10 times a day I'd be doing small amounts of fast-acting insulin and one big, large amount of long-acting insulin.
And now they got one test monitor that can talk to the pump to tell the pump how much insulin to put in.
Yeah.
It's just technology is just so advanced and everything. But it's going to be so, I hate to say it, but it doesn't look like a cure in the future.
Right.
It's a very complicated disease and illness, and we just keep on hoping there's going to be a cure, just like with cancer and MS and stuff like that. We're just hoping there'll be a cure someday. So we don't have to worry about counting all that stuff.
Exactly.
And putting insulin to us and everything. Now, we did put feelers out there. I asked people on my Facebook page, and Bill asked on onehappydiabetic.com if there's any questions you guys want to ask. And one person from Guildford actually responded. And her name is Jenny, and she responded on Facebook. And her question is, and it's kind of going with a type 2 diabetic. She is a type 2 diabetic, I know. She wants to know if she loses all the weight and they take her out of her medication, would she still have to take the A1C testing, and would she be like permanently gone from diabetes?
That's an interesting question. I'm not a medical professional, nor
no,
will I
no,
ever be one.
one.
All these tips and tricks you see here, don't try them at home. Let me try to explain to you type 2 diabetes in this little nutshell that I have up here. Type 2 diabetes, in my abstract view of it, happens one of two reasons. One is that you have a pancreas that's producing at 100%, but unfortunately you're eating 120% worth of carbohydrates, hypothetically. So your pancreas that's working fine, there's an additional 20% that it can't transfer or change, basically, the glucose into energy. So your blood sugar level is going to raise 20%, hence type 2 diabetes. The other issue is some people's pancreas have been working at 100%, but they've been over the years just pounding it, working it really hard, where all of a sudden the pancreas just says, listen, man, I can only work at 80%. I'm done. And so you're taking in 100% of food and carbs, but your pancreas is only working at 80%. So hypothetically, in that situation, if you reduced your carbohydrate intake by 20%, you're at 80 and 80. So it's not that your diabetes will go away, but you can manage it a lot better with your diet. The difference kind of between type 1 and type 2, in a sense, and I've heard this kind of philosophy go out there, is that with type 2 diabetes, you can regulate it by a diet.
Yeah.
And with type 1, there's no cheat days. And it's like you always have it. But literally with anything, literally with exercise and good diet, you really can minimize not you having diabetes. What you want to minimize is the complications. Listen, checking my blood sugar. Listen, I don't like it. But, I want both my legs. That's what I'm really trying to prevent here. So will it go away? It won't. It's always going to be there. Whether you check your blood sugar and it's 120, if I checked it right now and it was 120, does that mean I don't have diabetes because it's in a good range? No, I still have it. So if you're type 2 and under great glucose control and carb control, you still have it. And I think really that's the biggest challenge anybody has with diabetes, is that no matter how good you are, no matter how good your diet is, no matter how well you count your carbs, how good you do your glucose control, and how great you do your insulin injections or your medication, when you wake up the next morning, it's still there. Yep. So you can have a perfect day, and then you wake up the next morning and it's still there, and you're kind of like, what gives? What gives? And someone, I know I'm talking a little bit much here, but someone who
ahead.
has been involved with sports, it's like you go to the gym and you work out or something, right? And you're building up, you can see the muscles, you can see things, that are changing and happening. If you're on a diet, you can see yourself losing weight, it takes commitment. But with diabetes, you're just hoping that the next day you wake up and you're just normal, And so you can have a perfect 100% day, and then that struggle and that clock kicks in. So it's an unbearable competitor, and you just have to be really patient with this disease.
Now, what are some of the signs of high sugar?
High sugar. The interesting thing about high and low blood sugar, basically, is some of the symptoms can feel the same. High blood sugar, the way that I like to discuss it, is basically what your body is trying to do is get rid of glucose. So there's a couple ways that it can do that. One is urinating. So it's trying to release the extra sugar through urination or sweating. And the other thing too is that your vision might get blurry, because actually your tear ducts will try to get rid of some of that glucose, and your vision will get blurry. Plus, the other thing that I've noticed with me personally is that my muscles will get tight. And if you think about your body trying to get rid of glucose, it's trying to make your muscles work while you're not actually physically doing something. So that kind of happens too. And to be honest with you, sometimes I'll notice just little facial quirks that I might do, where I'll be like scrunching my nose for some reason. I'll look up and I'm driving and I'll see myself going like this. I'm like, oh man, maybe my blood sugar is high. And moodiness can also be one. So kind of sweating and just not feeling good. You feel kind of like almost like you're getting a cold.
How about lows? Now, how about the other way?
Right,
You're
lows.
Really low.
Low blood sugars, there's a great video, and I suggest you guys check it out. It's, onehappydiabetic.com. It's what a low blood sugar feels like. And I'll tell you what, it's one of my best videos. Literally, it was one of the first videos I did because it's so hard to put into words what it feels like. And number two, how I feel with my low, I'm like, nobody else feels like this. Nobody else feels like this. But I was looking for videos to see what it felt like, and nobody had it out there. So check out that video. But what it feels like to me is there's 3 factors in it. One is if you've ever been really hungry, hungry where kind of like sits down in your stomach, it almost like hurts a little bit. It has that feeling to it. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like an 8, but it has that feeling. Then it's mixed in with like a little bit of fear. If somebody scares you or you get real nervous before something, that feeling that kind of just flushes through your whole body, that's what that low kind of feels like. Topped on to that, the physical problems of a little bit of lightheadedness, maybe feeling a little dizzy, kind of if I just stood up out of this chair real quick, and you might kind of get a head rush. So if you kind of mix all those things together, to me, that's what a low blood sugar feels like. There's different types of lows. There's like extreme lows where you're almost blacking out, but there's different levels. But to kind of put it in a general category, and sometimes which is interesting, it's almost as if somebody is drunk or intoxicated. And I know there's a lot of people that have gotten in trouble when they're having a low because they look like they're intoxicated when they're really not. And actually the video that I have up on the website has been viewed by a lot of EMS professionals to show the difference between this is what a low is and this is somebody who's intoxicated, and it's a great educational piece.
Now we know what's high and low is, and I've been a lot of times in a low, and it's scary sometimes, especially where I'm working in retail. You can't stop right there and then to be able to work on it, and I use glucose tablets.
Right.
Because I have a thing about chocolate and candy, and it's like if I have a couple of M&Ms, I'm just not going to stop a couple of M&Ms. The whole bag is going to go in me. But I just find that the glucose tablets work a lot better and everything. And to go back to what I was saying back in 1996, that's what was happening to me. I was putting too much sugar in me. I used to like the candy at a Halloween time. The kernels,
candy corns.
Candy corns. I love those things.
Who doesn't like candy corns?
And I end up getting an infection, and it wouldn't go away, and I got infected, and I got an infection again. And he's like, "You're a diabetic." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he took my sugar. It was like 400. He says, "You're a diabetic." So that's how I was diagnosed with diabetes. But how can we manage it so we don't go too low, but at the same time we don't go too high?
Right. I mean, that's the ultimate trick. It's practice. That's what it takes. It takes practice. And the Asian arts say that you need 10,000 hours of experience to master something. And I really believe that's the same case here with diabetes. Sure, I could eat something that says it's 30 grams of carbohydrates, do the correct amount of insulin, the exact match for that, but the rest of my day isn't totally predictable. So if I went out to go play sports or if I went out to do a TV interview, my blood sugar is going to dip and change. So you always have to be on the move and make smart decisions. And those are really based upon the experiences you had in the past. You know, I mentioned how, you know, an extreme example, but how I had that seizure on third base when I was in Little League. I mean, talk about a nightmare. I mean, ambulance came to the field and things like that. But that was an experience. Yeah. So what did I do? Well, I made sure that I checked before, made sure that I had juice boxes, and you know, up to my senior year, you know, I had people throwing me juice boxes, you know. So it's learning from those experiences and moving forward. And just, you know, for example, I know that when I'm doing an interview with you or I'm doing one of the videos that I do, I get real passionate about it. And I know that my blood sugar is going to drop 20 to 30 points. I know that. I have that experience. So before I start this interview, you even saw me, I had some juice. And I did about 25 grams of carbohydrates, some juice, because I knew my sugar was going to dip. A couple of years back, I wouldn't have done that, and my blood sugar would be low right now, guaranteed.
Now, on your website, you have, it is a nonprofit website, even though it is .com. He doesn't take any money. It's nonprofit. Right. There is a spot where you can donate on the website to his cause and help. But he's also looking for volunteers, too. Anybody that would help him. He was trying to start up some campaigns, and he was having problems because he needed help. And if anybody has any knowledge of web designing or anything or wants to help Bill, at the end of the website, there's going to be a spot where you can email him and just tell him, hey, I would love to help you do a mailing, or I would love to help you do a web design or something like that. And it would help him out a lot, because I know that's one thing that you were talking about when we were talking together.
It would help me out.
That would help a lot too. So what's other ways what kind of ways can we help juvenile diabetes, American Diabetes Association? What's some of the things? Can we be involved with the senators and president and stuff like that?
Yeah, you know, it takes little steps. And I'm more of I'm a little bit selfish, so I want to take care of myself first, right? Take care of my diabetes first. Honestly, I think the best way to do that is to go to these support groups. I mean, literally. Or go onto these great websites that you had mentioned, To Diabetes, Diabetes Connect, my website, and get that feeling of you matter, that I exist here, I have these issues, but everybody else does. That inspiration boost and getting that contagious positive attitude, that's going to go further, in my opinion, than trying to contact your legislator to try to get them to research stem cells or nanotechnology and all this fun stuff. But don't put your hopes on this cure. I just want to say this. And it happened to me years ago. When I got first diagnosed, my doctors told me there was going to be a cure in 5 years. And so I was kind of like, well, geez, why do I have to put in all this time and effort now if there's just this cure? And now the cure is closer than ever. We keep on hearing that. And I just hope that the people that are watching this that have diabetes, don't let that affect your good glucose management. You have to maintain all those good habits, even if you hear these great news articles, saying that there's going to be a cure right down the road, 2-5 years. You would be surprised on how long this takes to get to fruition. I mean, it really does take a long time. So don't let that cure actually hurt your management now.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Would you like to add anything else before we wrap up?
I'm really looking for somebody to help me with my website. Yes. Listen, I do this all out of the kindness of my heart, and I get paid by the responses you give me. I would not do a single video if I didn't get comments on how, hey, Bill, I feel the same way. Bill, the video that you did on how to do an insulin injection, now my son has the ability to do it himself now. I mean, that's worth $1 million. I mean, I've been there. And to get these responses are great. I need some help. I mean, I'm doing this all on my own. You can't do everything on your own.
Yep.
And I think that's the problem that I'm having. I can do some great videos and some great blogs. And actually, one of my friends from high school who's newly diagnosed type 1, something that a lot of people don't know is that 50% of the people that get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes are over the age of 18. So it's not really a juvenile thing anymore. It's not moving more towards adults, but it's there. And he's actually going to help me out on my website. But if you want to get involved, you know, if you want to write a blog, if you want to go to the forums and just keep things active, that would be great. I really could use somebody to help me out with the web design and managing these videos properly. I'm a nonprofit. Everything comes out of my pocket. I pay more, you know, for this than, you know, what I get in return kind of from it. But to keep it moving and to keep it strong, I really need some help. So I'm asking you, please, you know, if you're seeing me here for the first time, go check out my videos and send me a message. You can do it at bill@onehappydiabetic.com. I try to get back to everybody. I usually do, and I would really appreciate some help in the future.
And you also, on his website, you can also purchase T-shirts, I believe. You sell T-shirts, One Happy Diabetic
Yeah,
t-shirts.
I took that. I actually
You
just
stopped
took that down.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was, and listen, it was a hot seller in Europe
Yeah.
because
Oh, was
it's considered like Americana, I guess. You know, so it was like really flashy. But I took that down. You know, I'm not here selling T-shirts. I'm here selling an attitude.
Yeah.
You know, because I really think that's one thing that you can control is when you wake up in the morning to say, hey, I'm going to do it today. And to have that good attitude going forward through the rest of the day is something that's hard to do. So maybe watching a silly video that I'm doing on ways to kind of, I don't know, manage your glucose better or whatever the case is, might give you one more good day.
Yeah.
You know, and if I can do that for one person, it's well worth it.
My personal thing too is I find out when I go on to these communities such as One Happy Diabetic and the 2diabetic.com and these other websites, it makes me feel that I'm not the only person out there. And so many times I feel alone. I feel that I'm out there alone. And my wife will even tell you, Amanda will even tell you that I sometimes even label myself a little depressed because it's like all of a sudden my sugar is going up and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And it's just these websites and these communities like onehappydiabetic.com. It's just so important for you to be able to get on that internet and be able to be involved in one of these communities because it will show you you're not there alone. And I started taking one medication that I was not really too sure about, and it was Bietta. And I went on to one of these websites, and I believe it was diabeticconnect.com, and I found out other people were taking it, and the side effects I was getting, these other people were getting, and I found out that, oh, these side effects will only last a couple months, and then that's it. And I went right through it, and now I'm on another injection now that's supposed to be better than Bietta. But I do take injection, I take pills, but I am not on insulin, not yet, but I'm not on insulin. But it's very important to reach out. You're not alone in this world, and that's what Bill's trying to do with this website and what a lot of other people are trying to do. If you don't end up liking Bill's, there's other ones out there. I really seriously, because the attitude he has right now is the attitudes he has in the videos. There are websites out there and there are help out there for you. Do never ever feel alone in this because there are so many people. And as technologies, we were talking about technology before, I want to bring it up. With technology coming up the way it is, more people are becoming diabetic, especially diabetic 2. Mm-hmm. They're becoming more. When I started doing Walk for a Cure, now it's called Stepping Out now, we were doing like 5 million people had diabetes. Now it's up to like 16 million, 16.5 million people have diabetes. And it's like it keeps on growing and growing and growing. And it's not because the disease is growing per se, but the technology that we have and everything. And you got to watch what you eat. That's a very important thing. You will get diabetes down the road if you don't watch what you're eating. And that's, I believe, really heartily, if I had a better income, a better understanding as a child, not saying my parents were wrong or nothing, but I was always husky and it was always potatoes and meat on the plate and nothing else. If the knowledge was there to count carbs and to be able to know the minus fiber and all that other stuff, it's very important to do that to keep yourself in check, because if you don't have diabetes and you keep on eating a lot of carbs, because that's an important thing that a lot of people say, oh, well, sugar raises, if you're diabetic, you can't have sugar. It's more carbs than sugar. And you got to watch your carbs and how much carbs you're bringing yourself into and everything. So it's very important that you do end up getting yourself involved with groups like this. And if you can have support groups. Unfortunately, I've already tried on the shoreline. There's no support group. The nearest one is in Meriden. I believe it's Middletown now, at the American Diabetes Association office is the nearest one that I know of right now. But please, I encourage everybody to go on onehappydiabetic.com and check out Bill Woods. He's a wonderful person. The video you saw at the beginning of the show will show you that he is the person he is. He's that excited and everything. And that video that we showed was really interesting. It's called You Don't Look Like You're a Diabetic. And it was very interesting.
Did you guys like turn on the TV and said, there's the diabetic kid, you know?
A lot of people know I'm a diabetic because I'm really out there and I tell people that I'm a diabetic and everything. So a lot of people in the community here in Guildford knows I'm a diabetic. But it was a really interesting video. I really liked that video that you did. But if you have anything at all, you want to talk about more about your diabetes experience, if you want anything at all, you can come on my show. It's perfectly fine. The address is below here. It's going right on the bottom of the screen. Today's technology with this new studio now. It's right here on the bottom of the screen. You will see my address and phone number. So please get a hold of me. I would really rather do a show with you guys. I want to reach out to the community, especially nonprofit organizations, and get your name out there and get what your organization is all about. Thanks a lot, Bill, for coming out today. You came all the way from South Windsor to here in Guildford. He had a track and a half, and I really appreciate you coming out and spending the evening with us. And thank you very much, and until next time, have a great day.